But what I love about the writing is how it all links in together, though. All the stories sort of come together into one, and they have an effect on each other. It's a masterclass in writing.
This podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/Andy Luke and nerdgeist.com. It contains graphic mentions of sex and violence and spoilers for The Shield, Season 6 and Season 7.
I need an assistant to stand and fan me. Could you start getting some sponsors for this podcast so we can actually get assistants and stuff?
I'm trying. Hey, welcome back to the Drew and Luke podcast, and today we're wrapping up our three-part exploration of the Shield with my co-host guest Ian Lawther from the USS Caroline. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks for having me back, Andy. It's been explosive. We're nearly at the end, and my goodness, do we have some stuff to talk about.
So to set the scene again, The Shield, which premiered on FX in 2002, follows an experimental division of the Los Angeles Police Department set up in the fictional Farmington district, the farm of Los Angeles. It's rife with gang-related violence, drug trafficking, and prostituting. Operating out of a converted church, the barn, some Farmington police work to maintain the peace in the district and reduce crime. Others resemble the type of corrupt officer known only too well through recent police scandals. So we are reaching Season 6 and we're going to explore Season 7 too. One big aspect of Season 6 is Shane's guilt for killing Lem, and that intensifies after the strike team learns that he didn't make a deal with the authorities. And Kavanagh resorts to threatening informants and planting evidence to pin Lem's murder on Vic.
You got him only to lie for you.
Now you know the difference between a lie and the truth.
You think I'm a cop killer? Maybe I am. You're a cop, right?
That sounds like a direct threat on my life, Detective. Know what that means?
It means you just stepped onto an entirely new playing field. For your sake, I hope you know the rules of the game.
And Dutch suspects it's all too convenient. So the fall of Kavanagh, Ian. Believable? Squeaky clean to Vic Styley?
You could see throughout the Season 5 that he was losing it. He was becoming very unhinged. But for me, he falls very quickly at the start of Season 6. Basically, like, they take a couple of episodes just to get it done.
Yeah, it's 2 episodes.
It felt very quick. And at the end of the day, his conscience got the better of him, and he confesses to what he's done and ends up behind bars.
I think it felt quite right. It was hella economical writing. I mean, if it was me doing it, I probably would have taken 3 or 4, but I suppose with an actor of Forrest Whitaker's caliber, you only have so much time. I think this was originally to be part of Season 5. It was supposed to go on longer. And actually, Season 6 was supposed to be the last one, but it got broken up into 2 parts.
Yes, Season 6 was quite a short season. But what I did love about Kavanagh in Season 6 is the last scene he has with Vic. He's behind bars. Vic's almost came to gloat and says, "You're going to prison." And Vic says, "I'm going to sleep well at night." Kavanagh sort of reverses that on him. He says, "My conscience clean. What about yours? I might be in prison now, but it's only a matter of time, Vic, until someone catches you out."
Yeah.
It was a great bit of back and forth between the two, just to end that part of the story.
Because when Whitaker's delivering honesty in that role, it cuts through like a knife in melted butter.
And he
which is a bit of a loaded phrase around the Shield and Kavanagh.
I think he knows Vic now enough to suspect that Vic isn't going to sleep well at night. He clears his conscience. He'll take the the consequences of whatever happens to him. But he just warns Vic, he says, I wasn't able to catch you. Somebody will.
I kind of buy it because, I mean, we've seen Kavanagh very much as a performance artist, an improvisational job. You know, you don't know which way he's going to go next. And he's already seen Lem go down, or he quite likes his wife, his own authority, all go down just in front of everybody in the barn. And he's already seen Vic triumph. Corinne, although Kavanagh pretty much brought that about himself.
Yes. I thought it was great when Corinne sort of marches into the police station and says, look, you came into my house on false pretenses. You started touching me in front of the whole office. He's trying to deny it, but I think Dutch, he knows Corinne enough to know she wouldn't lie, about that.
It's kind of typical that Dutch would be the first to smell a rat. He's principled mostly, regardless of politics.
He's got great spidey sense, hasn't he?
He does, yeah.
Or bullshit detector maybe is more the term we should use. He feels that everything is just so neat and so fitting together that he doesn't buy it.
The Salvadorans had a contract out on your life that you never left town. Why not just hightail it out of here?
I won't talk to anyone but John.
Kavanaugh's not here, and you need to answer my question.
Only reason I'm in this mess is because of you assholes.
What's this?
I'm exploring another angle.
I'll catch you up later. Catch me up now.
We know Amelia was greenlit. What if she was trying to gain favor with Guardo to save her life? Cut a deal with them. They kill Lemansky. She pins it on Vic.
Maggie's out there right now, and you're wasting time talking to her. This interrogation is over.
No, it's not. I'm not finished yet.
We need every cop we have out looking for Vic. The private tutoring might buy you favor with your hot unis, but it doesn't get us any closer to scooping up Mackey. And you weren't spending your time exploring pot-shot theories and doing your job like you were supposed to. We have Vic here right now, and that's an innocent witness. Come on, Lord.
And meanwhile, Vic is off blaming Guardo. A pretty barbaric, sort of torturous scene and blaming Guardo, the drug dealer, for Lem's death. And it's really interesting to see Walton Goggins playing Shane in this scene again. He's learned Guardo as a child on the way. He's just starting up a new life. Shane is really moved. What's going on between Shane and Guardo is very much a reflection of the conflict between Shane and Lem, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Vic takes Gordo, strings him up basically in an undisclosed location, tells him he wants him to admit that he killed Len, or at least give the order to kill Len. Of course, he's going, he didn't, so he's going, I can't tell you what I didn't do. Vic wraps a chain around him and starts whipping him until it's quite a brutal scene, until the blood is just pouring from him. And all while this is happening,
the murderer stood in the same room.
Yeah, and you can see it's getting to Shane, and Shane's trying to get him to stop. But, Vic needs revenge. Shane thinks he convinces him to stop by telling him, look, you beat him so bad, if he knew something he would have spilled by now. As Vic does, he has these sort of times when his eyes sort of go mad, and but he looks very calm, and then he just shoots the guy in the head and says, right, he's got no more information. Which really shakes Shane, because ultimately Shane is a lot of things, but he does tend to have a conscience, even if he never goes by that conscience.
Does pop up. That's interesting what you said about what Chiklis does with his eyes. It's kind of like a sort of I'm reminded of Culcullen's berserker rage.
Yeah,
warp spasms.
That he's losing it, but there's a calm before the storm.
Claudette makes radical changes to the strike team, which include adding Julian and replacing Vic with newcomer Kevin Hyatt. Unsurprisingly, Shane doesn't like Hyatt. Vic fights back against his enforced retirement. So unpacking the new strike team, where do we want to start? What about Julian?
That surprised me a little bit. I can understand why Claudette done it, because Julian is a pretty straight shooter. So she wanted to reform the strike team, make it better. You know, she knows that Vic's got his hands on all sorts of illegal activity. She can't prove anything, but if Vic's going to be out the door in 30 days, she can reform that whole strike team. So she brings in a new leader, a guy that on paper looks brilliant, and tells Vic, this is your replacement. Get him up to speed. And Vic, surprisingly, plays ball because he knows that if he's going to find a way to keep his job, he can't rattle fellers at the minute.
So Kevin Hyatt is the new leader. He's formerly of ICE, Immigrations and Customs, who we talk quite a bit more about in season 7. Yeah, Vic trusts him. It's kind of telling that Shane doesn't trust him, perhaps even...
Well, you know, Shane's worried because Shane knows all the stuff that him and Vic and that strike team have got up to. If you bring in a new guy,
an outsider,
you have to be very careful of what you say.
Yeah.
Shane's not pleased with the situation, and he doesn't like the idea of taking orders from someone else at this point.
Nobody gets between Shane and his man.
Yeah.
And particularly now that they're looking around for a scapegoat. Yeah, I mean, Tavon fitted that bill last time, and Hyatt's just going to get in a row. What would Hyatt look like leading a new strike team of Shane, Ronnie, and Julian? How would that play out?
On paper, I think he looked like a very promising guy to lead the strike team, but you learn quickly that he maybe doesn't know enough about the streets in Farmington to do the job. I think the guy's there to make a name for himself. He starts off really well, but he doesn't understand the area where he's in. He doesn't seem to play long term. It's very short victories where we see him. He breaks up a gang initiation of a couple of 14-year-olds that are getting a beating. But the problem is, to do that, he has to burn CIs. And Vic is raging because he says, wait, you've burnt CIs just to stop an initiation. And all that's going to do is delay them getting into gangs, and they'll do it some other way. And things escalate to where the initiation becomes basically killing somebody up, just a randomer in the street, just to prove you're good enough for the gangs. So the new guy basically opens up a can of worms. The Vic tries to warn him, this isn't worth it. You don't burn CIs just to stop a couple of 14-year-old kids getting initiated. The new guy sees it as, if we stop the initiations, they won't get caught up in the gangs. And Vic tries to tell him that's wishful thinking. They will get caught up in the gangs. You've just delayed the inevitable.
You know, that's a really interesting degree of difference. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that sort of thinking around CIs reminds me of Shane.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the series, in some ways, Vic's power is the CIs. He always keeps CIs close to him. He always treats them well, because that's where he gets his ends. Burning a CI for something, for just to try and save a couple of kids from getting into a gang, doesn't make any sense to him. And again, that seems pretty cold because they're 14-year-old kids and they're taking beatings to get into a gang. The gang gets them on the ground, gives them a kicking to prove they're tough enough. The new guy wants to stop that and says, look, if we stop them getting into the gangs, these gangs won't have as many members. And the truth is, as Vic knows, that was going to escalate the situation, because now what will happen is those two kids that they save, they will go out of their way to prove that they can get into a gang. And what they basically do is they go to a street and they murder someone to prove that they're tough enough for the gang. So Vic says, what's better? A kid takes a beating or someone dies. The system isn't perfect. And that's when Claudette starts to realize that the new guy maybe isn't the man for the strike force, because although she doesn't want him to be Vic Mackey, she wants him to use his head and think about the long-term success of dealing with these drug gangs.
We were talking before we come on there about Alex O'Loughlin, who plays Kevin Hyatt. I we like him well enough, but there was a bit of a blank slate there that maybe could have been a bit more done with him.
Absolutely. It seemed as the season went on, they done less and less with him. And, you know, his exit was just pretty quick. It was pretty much the last episode of season 6. It was, Claudette tells him, I don't think you're the man for this strike team. And he looks at her and he says, well, I'm going to land on my feet. People were fighting over getting me to work for them. And he walks out the door, and that's it.
The reason for his dismissal, which I think is pretty much On paper, it's Tina. Oh, and
Right.
politics behind it, I think, is meant to be Vic.
Yes, I mean, we should mention that the thing he does is he has a one-night stand with Tina. When Claudette finds out about this, she goes to him and says, "You're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to announce if you're with someone that you work with." And he says, "Look, it's a one-time thing. Any other place I've been, that would be a wink and a nod." And Claudette says, "Not in the place I run." And that makes her sort of suspect that, okay, he's not the man I thought he was.
Just very quickly before we get off the new strike team, and we'll come on to the Tina Hyatt of things in a minute. I really like Julian. I thought finally they found a bit of a role for him in the new strike team. He's stepping up. He's doing that.
And he wants to prove himself to Vic, in a way.
I mean, there is an element of, okay, this is the guy who's going to rat us out. This could be the new Terry. But he is a character who's very comfortable with typical male performativity. So going around and kicking down doors is not something Julian necessarily likes, but he feels comfortable.
And he's a workhorse, you know. The strike team, you know, they sort of laugh about it, but Julian's the workhorse. He'll do the grunt work for them, which, you know, the strike team, they don't like doing grunt work, but they keep Julian at arm's length. They find ways to get rid of him so that he doesn't learn anything about the strike team's past. But I think it gives the actor something to do this season that's a bit different.
Yeah, he is pretty proactive. And in the meantime, I mean, by the end of season 6, we're meant to have seen Vic gone. So there's this Vic versus retirement thing where the motive lie is laid bare, the old Walter White BS. I'm doing it for my family. That's just been done away with at this stage. What do you think it would take to make Victor retire? Money train to Claudette's captaincy?
To be honest, I think maybe a bullet to the head. And I really mean that, because Vic talks about the money and the money train being the last score, but Vic lives for the action. Everything he does proves it, especially in the last 2 seasons. I don't know, Vic needs to be in amongst the action, taking the criminals off the street. Yes, he'll take money and he'll make deals, but at the end of the day, who he is that guy on the street. The idea of Vic going away and retiring, I just can't see it.
It's one of the few times where I've seen Vic stop in his tracks is when an officer is killed, where there's that's open to debate given what we know about Vic from episode 1. But when Carl and Scooby go missing, I'm reminded of the scene where Dutch and Billings and Vic are having this big fight, and Dutch is taking Billings out. He's coming for Vic next, and Claudette just screams, 2 of our guys have been killed, enough. And you see this fixed look of understanding in those eyes. It completely gives sway to Wyms. That she is right down the line.
You have to remember that Vic, in his own head, going back to the murder from day 1 of Terry, Vic really feels that he was justified, that Terry was kind of like a dirty cop for spying on other cops. He's always justified it.
Yeah.
But when Lem dies, Shane says something to Vic in as much as, you can blame me all you want, Vic, but we were all following you. All your plays led to this moment.
Vic compartmentalizes quite a bit. There is an entire space in his brain where killing Terry was the right thing to do and entirely justified. I'm convinced there's other areas of his brain that is eating away at him. Quite right.
Oh, absolutely. You know a lot eats away at Vic. I mean, what I think with Vic is, I think going back to, there's this thing of Vic's family versus the job. What does he care about more? And I think he loves his family, but I don't think he can live without the job. Because if you think of the things he does in season 6, he doesn't keep his family clear. He gets his family into trouble and then has to do something crazy to save them at the last minute because he loves his family. But does he love his family enough to keep them out of danger?
Dutch tries to adjust to his new partnership with Billings and his crush on Tina Hanlon, while Danny and her clash frequently. with Kevin Hyatt caught in the middle. Oh, the tangled webs.
Yeah, Dutch obviously does like her, but Dutch, he doesn't really have the confidence really to maybe think he stands a chance. And Billings and Dutch, they can work well together, but they annoy the hell out of each other.
Yeah,
and Billings decides to be cruel.
You want to be pissed at me? Get even. Don't do it in
No,
there.
come on, it's not my fault. The guy's got one foot in the psych ward.
He's just fragile. And since psychological complexity isn't exactly your strong suit, back off. You got any crisp singles? I want to get a cup of soup out of one of your machines while they're still there.
I walked it 5 different ways, looked under every bush, hit every trash can.
Wait a minute, you got these 2 beautiful women looking in trash cans?
Hey, it's part of the job, right?
Garbage pickup tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
Hey, my man. Hey. You were my hero.
Oh, yeah? Why is that?
Hamlin? Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed the way she talks about you. Never mind.
Gotta make a habit of banging chicks who know where to find me in the morning.
So the Dutch man has a shot then?
Dutch?
Sure. You get her fired, it's all stoked. Heat's got to go somewhere, right? And he's been working that caring mentor angle like there's no tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
You're lost, my friend. Sucks about Sophie not letting you take a run at her killer.
What do you mean?
Oh, I shouldn't have said anything. We were going to bring you into interrogation, give you a chance to show your stuff. She wouldn't have it. Said you didn't have the skills.
Really?
I guess it's understandable.
Understandable.
Well, sure. I mean, obviously she's making a play for Hyatt, and him thinking you're a screw-up just makes you less of a threat. Sort of petty, but that poor guy can't take his eyes off of you. So what else is she going to do?
You think Kevin's into me? I know he's definitely not into her.
Oh, I don't know. I've seen him cozy a couple times. I'm going to stay out of it.
But he makes sure that Dutch is there to see it, to see them have like a shag, if you like. He steals Tina's phone. He sends Dutch a text saying, come to dinner at my place, or something to that effect at such and such a time. Of course, Dutch shows up just to see through the window that she's making out with Hyatt. And that makes things very uncomfortable. And Billings is just smiling from ear to ear.
Billings is kindergarten Vic. He's like a little 4-year-old Vic in pajamas, throwing stuff about.
Billings,
everyone gets what they want, especially me.
Billings is so strange because at times he's the worst cop on the planet, and then there's times in season 6 where he actually does something that helps Dutch solve a case.
Yeah.
So he can be a good cop, but he just doesn't want to be arsed.
Yeah, the Billings, the minimum amount of effort required.
He's trying to sue for disability payments because of that bump in the head he took when he broke up Vic and Kavanagh, and he hits his head sort of off the end of a desk or something. He's fine, but throughout season 6, he keeps saying things to Dutch like, oh, I've been getting headaches, I've been getting this, I can't sleep, blah, blah, blah. Just putting little seeds in place so that he can claim disability. But of course, it doesn't end up that well for him. Before he knows that he's back to work. Yeah.
His actions probably spur on Tina's politicking through the department, where she sort of pivots into a...
Yeah, it's kind of funny. She gets a promotion, again, based on what she looks like. She becomes one of the poster people for the police. That probably saves Tina's job in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because she comes back, she's a bit more confident. She's starting to do a better job.
She's out of line of... I mean, Claudette would have had her fired.
Yeah, very much. But she still has a lot to prove to Danny, it seems.
Yeah, so I was wondering about sort of the relationship in all this between Billings and Danny. I mean, like, it seems that he's completely unaware of her, or he's just not caring, maybe obnoxious. I
don't think they have a relationship. The only time you see Billings talk to Danny is either on a case that they're investigating, go and do this, go and do that, or to try and stir up trouble with people. You would see him maybe in Danny's ear or Tina's ear.
Isn't that Billings' relationship with a lot of people, though?
It is. And
I
I think what it comes down to, and I think he says this himself in season 6, he feels that since he was captain, he gets absolutely no respect. And this is one of the reasons he doesn't try too hard. But as Dutch tries to tell him, respect's earned, what have you done to earn it?
Yeah. Screw you, Billings.
Pretty much.
For all that connivance and manipulation, in spite of Billings, Dutch and Danny do get closer together, and there's kind of a sense there that while there's not any kind of romance blooming, that a friendship has been deepened.
It has, yeah. They do sort of the whole thing with Tina. Dutch gets pretty upset about, and Danny's kind of like a shoulder to cry on. You do see them share a sort of kiss and a hug, but you later find out that probably turned into a one-night stand.
If even, I don't know if that.
Well, Dutch, Dutch kind of, Danny comes to Dutch, says, look, I need to talk to you about something. And of course, Dutch starts saying, we were in a vulnerable place. We were there for each other. It happened. It was I understand it was just a one-time gig.
Shipping and then that's fine.
But then Danny comes off with, well, actually, no, that's not what I want to tell you. There's a suspect up there I need you to speak to. So it kind of gives you the impression there was more than just the kiss for maybe a night, but, they kind of leave it open. But yeah, they certainly get closer. And then the other interesting thing is just to bring Vic into Danny's story. As you know, her new baby is Vic's. Now, she's made it clear that she doesn't want Vic to have anything really to do with the kid. But now suddenly she wants to put that in writing. That throws Vic off a wee bit, because I think in Vic's head, he always thought that eventually he'd get to know his new kid. Yeah. But Danny knows enough about Vic that she wants to protect her kid and say, look, sign this to waive your rights to being a parent, basically.
Yeah, that certainly ramps up quite a bit in season 7 in Vic's fall. Tensions on the strike team lead Vendrell to admit to killing Lomansky. And knowing that Mackey will likely kill him, he turns to the Armenian mob for protection, only to expose their role in the money train heist, putting their families at risk. Vendrell writes up all their crimes and mails duplicates to use as blackmail against Mackey. Oh, Shane Vendrell.
Vic is pissed. Because the problem with admitting Vic and his team were the ones who done the money train robbery. What he leaves out is that Shane was part of that team.
Yeah.
But what Shane doesn't realize is the Armenians don't just go after the people that done the crime. They go after the family, the women and children. So what Shane realizes he's done is, although he hates Vic at this point in time, he does not want Vic's family to suffer for it, or anybody's family.
It's even worse than the whole Antoine Mitchell involvement. He
gets it so deep, and then that's where he realizes that there's going to be a hit on Vic's family. He tries to call Vic 100 times or whatever, but Vic sees Shane's name come up on the phone and doesn't pick up. So Shane gets Corinne, the oldest daughter, basically locks them in a storage van with them screaming, Shane, what are you doing? Leave us alone.
Let's wheel it back to this, because that's kind of episode 10. So let's wheel it back to the start of the season. From episodes 1 to about 6, Vic and Ronnie are suspecting it's Shane, and those two sort of bond. Ronnie becomes Vic's wingman.
Really does, yeah.
He says to him at one point, when Ronnie learns about the murder of Terry, he says, I'd have done a better job covering it up than him.
I could have protected you more.
Yeah. So Ronnie seemed to have grown in investment to Vic. Perhaps that's been solidified by what happened with Lem. From backstory, we know Shane brought Ronnie and Lem on board initially, but now for Ronnie, the scales have very much fallen from his eyes about the sort of person that Shane is.
Yeah, he's discussed it with Shane. He really is, and he doesn't want anything to do with Shane. But as has happened before, usually when the strike team has fallen out with Shane, unfortunately, they need each other. Vic needs Shane's connections to the Armenian mob. So they kind of have a very uneasy truce. Ronnie is not impressed with Shane at all. And if anything, that moves him closer to Vic.
What do you make of David Rees? Is it David Rees-Snell stepping out of the limelight proper in this season?
Yeah, he really does. I mean, he earns his stripes. He's the most loyal person that there's ever been to Vic this season. Because think of what he finds out. He finds out if Vic killed Terry. Somehow he's okay with it. I always knew. I mean, obviously, Ronnie was part of the strike team, but he always, like Lem, he seemed a bit more straight-laced than maybe Vic and Shane.
Yeah, well, it was kind of hard to say. He was so quiet.
He was so quiet, so it was really hard to tell. But when he hears about Terry and he's okay with it, you start to think, I don't have any more sympathy for you because, you're just following Vic.
I was reading TV critic Alan Sepinwall's reviews, and quite a few commenters there, and Sepinwall himself referenced that Ronnie is actually much colder than they expected.
Yes,
very much finally emerged. He's quite a dangerous man.
He is, and he's cold. He's calculating. As you say, he's that silent type, so it's very hard to get a read on him. But the things he does for Vic in this season, he kills for Vic.
He's got the mind in that killing of the Armenian mobster. He's got the mind of he's an independent thinker. He can do stuff.
In fact, in some ways, he saves Vic from himself because he tells Vic that he has to be smart about this. Vic can't kill the mobster. He has to leave. He has to get back to the farm so that the farm can see where he is. And then Ronnie pulls the trigger. The thing that Ronnie doesn't realize is that Shane's actually there, lurking, watching the whole thing.
the little weasel.
Yep.
I want to come on to talk about the confrontation. Vic versus Shane and the truth about Lem. That episode was actually directed by Frank Darabont of The Shawshank Redemption and The Walking Dead. So it's just a wonderful scene where Vic realizes the monster that he has created in Shane and maybe that realizes that he is that monster himself. There's like an addict glimmer of clarity.
It was an impossible situation. At the time, it was either him or the rest of us.
Bullshit.
Look, I was protecting you and Ronnie from it. Look, if he would have gone to jail like he wanted, he would have been killed by Antoine or turned by Kavanaugh. Man, you know that.
I don't know that. He was strong. You killed him because you were scared. He was strong and you were a coward.
I was being strong for all of us. And I am not a coward.
Yeah, you were. You were when you sat by and watched me tear Guado apart for something you did. Jesus Christ, what did you turn me into?
He was an asshole murderer.
I'm not an executioner.
Oh, go tell that to Terry's family.
Oh, that's different. That son of a bitch, he was a traitor. Lem was my friend.
He was mine, too. Look, you think you're looking at me through some window. All you're really doing is looking in a mirror.
You and I were nothing alike. I would never.
Oh, you did. More than once. So let's at least tell the truth now. Lem's gone.
I would have spared Lem.
And I stepped up and put Lem down so you could go to bed at night believing that.
Again, it's, the actor and how he acts with his eyes, his face. You could tell he's disgusted, he's hurt, he's pissed all at the same time. And you can see him looking at Shane. And those are the moments I like, because in those moments you don't know what Vic's going to do. I thought was Vic going to lose it, pull a gun on him. He doesn't.
Yeah, berserker rage.
He doesn't go that way, but he probably could have. And this is where I think Shane makes it worse.
Are you so goddamn psychic? Why didn't you know that Aceveda was lying about Lem, huh? I mean, all I was doing was following your game plan, coach.
Shane's very good at justifying his actions to himself, and that really gets to Vic, I think.
It's very rarely he's so candid when he is shooting his mouth off, and Vic really needed to know that sort of stuff then and a lot earlier.
Vic might be a tough man, but he doesn't take killing lightly, per se. he says, I strung up a man, I beat him near death, and then I killed him while the real killer was standing next to me. And you that me.
Well, both Vic and Shane are very fond of self-righteousness and taking the higher ground. It is a big pissing match between the pair of them more and more.
It is. And the problem is they pull everybody in with them.
Yeah.
Including both their families. Because don't forget, Shane has a family too.
Yeah, so it's Shane and Mara. They're beginning to go off the rails a bit. There's the witness statement. There's every dirty deed that Shane writes down. And I imagine unpacking all that, the last 5 seasons, must have been something like a palate cleanser. There's a political and literal security there. But I wonder, a sort of relish, like a sense of personal or self-security leads him to go back to the Armenians. Ego, pride.
I think one of the important things, if we just go back slightly, is that before he comes clean with Vic, he comes clean with Mara. Because Mara and him are having so many problems. Mara's done with him, tells him to get out. And then Shane looks like he's about to have a breakdown. And he tells Mara, you don't understand what I've done. I killed Lem. Please don't ask me to leave. And in the end, she forgives him and hugs him. So Shane coming clean to Mara, I think, really helps Shane get it together a bit.
Yeah, and I think this opens up Michelle Hicks, who plays Mara Sewell. Not a particularly likable character.
No.
And also we can see plenty where I think she's quite a lazily written character, a fairly single, one-dimensional, easy target. And this is the beginning of her stepping into her own. And in season 7, honestly, we'll come to talk. Michelle Hicks is phenomenal, I think.
Yeah, the end of season
Goggins
6,
is such chemistry.
Season 7, she's brilliant. And that's the thing. It's not just Vic versus Shane anymore. It's the two families.
Yeah.
Because while Vic and Shane are having this rivalry, Corinne and Mara are speaking to each other. Mara knows more, obviously, than Corinne does. And then Mara spills some of the beans to Corinne. That's the beginning of, if you like, the downfall.
Yeah, but he never speaks to Mara, as far as I recall, about this character, Dino Kasakian, played by Franca Potente, who is the daughter of one of the Armenian mobsters that Shane is in bed with this season. And it is very much, again, it's like Shane trying to run his own operation.
Again, it's Shane trying to prove that he's better and he's smarter than Vic.
He can do Vic better than Vic can.
Yeah. And unfortunately, and the thing is, sometimes Shane does come across quite smart when these things are beginning, but Shane always takes it too far. And when Shane gets desperate, he makes mistakes. And it was desperation in Shane's part that he tells the daughter about the money train to stay in good with her. And of course, that totally backfires.
Yeah. He ain't no business guru.
No.
I very much believe the whole writing out this every dirty deed dossier, a sensible way to protect yourself. If you're going down and you've got that much on somebody else who was part of it, that's a way to take them down with you. And I mean, anytime I've been involved in there's a police thing or not even a police thing, there's an act of violence, I will write down everything that happened. I will make a little witness statement for myself or a little notebook. And it's also a nice bit of foreshadowing for what we get in season 7 with Pazuela's blackmail box, which is a kind of a MacGuffin device.
It's a bit of a Pandora's box as well, because it's a device that the writers need to find a way for Vic to keep his job. So this box comes into play a bit. And just to say what this box is, it's basically a box that's being supplied with evidence about high-ranking people in government, police officers, officials. I think it's at the end of season 6, isn't it? Where Vic tries to blackmail Acevedo to swaying the committee to get him to keep his job. He gets a pic of what happened to Acevedo. He was basically made to suck those gangs' dicks or die. And he tries to blackmail Acevedo to help him with that. The problem is, what Vic doesn't realize is Acevedo clearly says, I do not have enough pull to sway that, it sort of backfires on Vic to a degree.
Vic has really stretched out his own noose.
Yeah, a 7-year odyssey and everything just comes tumbling down.
Through different paths, Vic Mackey and Shane Vendrell spark a war between the Armenians and Salvadorans. Vic cozies up to an ICE agent, Olivia Murray, in hope of getting immunity from the strike team's crimes. So it's like a very simple description, but so much. Olivia Murray, played by Laurie Holden, an actress I thought was done a great disservice in Walking Dead. I haven't seen much she's in, but I really like her.
Yeah, I can't remember what she's been in other than The Walking Dead.
There was a possible Stephen King adaptation, possibly by Frank Darabont. It featured a lot of Walking Dead season 1 actors and actresses.
Oh, right.
I think she was not the Miss.
Oh, right, okay, right. I haven't seen it, but yeah, I know her from The Walking Dead. I think she was in season 1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
I think
not a great character. I don't think it's anything to do with her acting ability. It wasn't a great character. No,
kind of wasted, really. This role, though, shows off her ability to play strong, centered characters. And that's kind of the place where she excels. Very organized, sort of projection, well-meaning initially, level-headed, comes in helping Claudette as sort of a counterpoint to Vic. I mean, as we go on, we find out her name is in this blackmail box.
Vic uses her resources, or so he thinks, to try and get information on certain mobsters, but she keeps coming back and saying there's no information in the system. And then they find out she's in the black box. So that kind of changes things a bit.
It begins with a turf war where we have, it begins with Vic and Ronnie taking reprisals on Shane by kidnapping Mara. It's all in the game, I suppose.
Yeah. At some point, doesn't Vic break into Shane and Mara's home? He ties Mara up and then starts beating on Shane. I can't remember what it is that gets him to stop.
I mean, Mara is to some extent blinded by her own ability to read and remedy Shane's faults. Although you talked about before, there's much more disclosure going on there. Whereas Corinne and Summer are kind of sort of clueless.
Summer, Vic's daughter, is not in a good place because she starts hearing all these rumors in the police station about what Vic has done. And she can't believe that's her father. And she's wanting answers, but Vic's not giving any. And, Corinne at this point is almost trying to defend Vic to Summer.
Yeah.
But Corinne, meanwhile, knows that Vic has got them in a lot of trouble.
I quite liked Summer at this point. I thought the character's a typical teenager, which is essentially no fixed personality, bouncing about like a pinball. One week she's a good little girl. The next she's barking. The next she's dealing drugs.
Mm-hmm.
The next she's a good girl again.
Yeah.
That was my teenage years. Sorry, Dad. Sorry, Mom.
There was this scene where Vic and Corinne are confronting her about the drugs, and she was supposed to be looking after her little brother, and Vic actually grabs her pretty hard, scares the life out of her. Now Vic realizes straight away what he's done and tries to apologize to her, but Corinne says, "But get out before you make this worse." Vic's family dynamic is starting to fall apart pretty quickly. Vic can deal with trouble on the streets or can deal with trouble that's coming at him. But when he's having family trouble, that's not where he shines,
Yeah. And as much as Shane accelerates the trouble on the street with his mouth, Mara does the same thing in the domestic situation.
She does. She tells Corinne some stuff.
Even before it's full-blown war between the two families, I think she gives Corinne a few sharp shocks and wake-up calls.
Which I think, in fairness, she needed. Because I think what Mara's point was that their men are fighting, but it might be the women that have to stop this. And she's probably got a point.
Alongside this, on the streets, when we meet Olivia Murray, there's a turf war, there's bodies bloody in the streets that have been dragged down the centre of the road by cars. And I'm just going to read up my note here. A good way to keep the action not stalling when you consider this is the very personified way which Vic and Shane deal with their problems. It's very symbolic. We have Vic and Ronnie beginning to circle Shane. They'll botch it. Vic and Olivia's partnership seems to some respects to resemble or resonate like Vic and Rawling.
Yeah.
He's keeping his nose clean. He's doing his best. He's compartmentalizing this little war with Shane, which is kind of aided by his trust in Ronnie, who has taken over leading the strike team at this point. Vic is looking for a fresh start with season 7 and imagining a season 8. Meanwhile, Ronnie he's stepping back. He's doing police work. Got, as we said, with Julian out of the loop, and he's sent on research and things. Yeah. Is Ronnie leading the strike team a good example to Vic? A better way of doing things? I think probably so.
Yeah.
After the film, Vic isn't necessarily calling the shots of the strike team. He has clout. He has a lot of clout, but
he does. I mean,
Ronnie's in charge.
Ronnie's in charge, but Ronnie will always defer to Vic. If Vic wants something done, Ronnie's going to get the strike team to do it. I don't think, at this point, Vic needs to be in charge of the strike team to have influence. If Ronnie's there, then Ronnie's his man. So I don't think that makes a difference. And I think that Vic, in some ways, has bigger problems to deal with than the strike team at the minute. So in some ways, Ronnie being in charge of the strike team maybe gives Vic a bit of freedom to go out and do what he feels he has to do to get everyone out of this situation and to have that new beginning that you talked about.
The next point is kind of a miscellaneous. So Danny ducks out on Vic's interest as a father of her child. Claudette is on a lot of drugs for lupus and her home is a mess. Steve Billings, after his litigation suit, is tossed out. We mentioned earlier Billings involved in more serious stories here. There's a sex offender story. There's a sex offender in the neighborhood. Billings is happy to listen to his ex and his daughters and plant a little bit of evidence to get this guy taken out of his neighborhood. And there's that sort of creeping corruption, that temptation to abuse a badge, a shield again.
Mm-hmm.
Billings will, when he's considering this plan, he's trying to position Dutch as his Shane.
You feel good about yourself?
Actually, I do. I'm going to sleep a hell of a lot better tonight knowing my daughters are safe.
You committed a crime.
What crime is that?
Did Heap really have that child porn? Or did they plan it along with their bogus warrant?
You were there. I didn't ask. And Detective Keefe did me the courtesy of not telling.
He's been clean for 6 years, Steve.
No, he wasn't clean. He just hadn't been caught.
And for all we know, he was going to stay clean.
He found kiddie porn in the guy's bedroom, for Christ's sake.
Come on, he spot checks twice a month. Today, he just happened to leave kiddie porn on his dresser? Please.
Cop helped another cop out. It's called loyalty.
It's wrong.
And we've also got the ongoing saga of the vending machines and the health lawsuits.
Yeah, the vending machines have been used for a bit of comedy and a way for Dutch to sort of control Billings to a degree when he starts to get really lazy or threaten to do stupid things. He holds it over Billings' head. If Billings was smart, he'd get rid of the vending machine straight away. But Billings isn't that smart. He'd rather make a few quid.
Steve, come on in. Sit down. First, I want to apologize for that outburst earlier. It was unprofessional.
Yeah, and very mean-spirited.
And second, I want to thank you for solving that murder for us. It will really help with our quarterly stats. You were on the top of your game.
Yeah, I get these little bursts of energy, in between needing to lie down and so forth.
Well, don't be modest, Steve.
I work for Hector Siding Company, Vice President of Sales.
Headaches, disorientation, lethargy, memory loss, inability to logic.
What's your point?
Your scam's over. We've got proof you've been faking your head injury.
This doesn't prove shit.
No, with the tape and our testimony from your performance today, the lawsuit is dead.
Maybe you throw in your history of defrauding the city with your little vending machine enterprise?
All right, look. Last thing I ever wanted to do was hurt the department. I will call my attorney and have her take the settlement offer.
You'll take nothing. You'll be glad I didn't fire you, pull your pension. I spoke to Phillips. You'll be back to work tomorrow morning. If you want to quit, it's up to you.
I'll have to consult my legal team.
Just as long as you're here tomorrow morning first thing, you can consult till your hair grows back.
Billing shenanigans. I kind of sense that as players move about this season, the Dutch is actually moving closer towards being offered the captaincy again.
He could be. The great thing about Claudette being the captain is she trusts Dutch more than anybody probably in the place, which really helps Dutch in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he does a good job of manipulating Danny to get some help for Claudette.
Yeah, he knows that Claudette is struggling, but of course he knows that Claudette's not going to go out and ask for help. He knows that Danny has had a bad experience out in the field after coming back with her baby. She nearly gets strangled to death. So he plants the seeds in her mind that a sort of more administrative job helping Claudette could be the way to go. And
some smart thinking to two big problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right there.
Absolutely, and let's face it, Claudette needs the help, and Danny knows the system, so I think it worked out, and from what I remember, she takes that job, doesn't she?
Yeah.
As Claudette's sort of right hand, because Claudette, as season 7 starts and goes on, she starts to look very shaky again. She says she's trying new medication, and it's just having a bit of a side effect, so Dutch is worried about her, and
it's interesting to watch the trajectories. I mean, we know Vic's on his way out. We learn Wyms is on her way out, but they're exiting in very different ways. And the relationships with Control and how they are perceived and what they want to do, more to the point, in leaving is quite different. So Danny has been on the back burner, I feel, for a few seasons. And we get she's popping her head up above water here. She's got no Julian to support. She's been trying to get Vic out of her life, but Summer shows up at her door. Corinne shows up at her door.
It's proving tough. It's proving tough. Summer wants to know about her dad, and she figures who better than to know than the girl that he's had a kid with. Unfortunately, of course, Danny doesn't want any part of that conversation. Summer asks him outright, did he kill Terry? I mean, Danny doesn't know he did. So Danny goes, of course not. Your dad's not a murderer. But that's all she's willing to say. She's not really willing to get into the conversation, and she calls Corinne straight away to come and get Summer.
Just in the mid-season where stuff is really beginning to blow up about the strike team, we have Danny moves home, sort of after Vic is showing up, and what Corinne says to him is, you're fighting for Lee just to fight. Mm-hmm. He hasn't actually thought about the responsibilities. And we've had Corinne shows up and has warned Danny about the autism. Perhaps in subtext we can read it as a warning about Vic. Danny is going through, she's mirroring what Corinne went through in season 2 when Vic was always trying to encroach upon her life and she was trying to get away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a nicer resonance, I feel.
Corinne at this point, I think, is realizing that Vic, even if he means well, she has to start distancing herself, because for as much as he claims to love his family, he certainly puts his family in harm's way enough. You would think if it got to the point where the job puts his family in danger, he'd step away. But, that's not Vic. Vic lives to be on the streets and taking down the criminals. I think that's really, in a lot of ways, what he loves.
Well, he's that guy that has to have the last word.
Yeah.
And I think the last action as well, reasonably.
Yeah.
To come back to your answer to what would it take for Vic to retire, I don't know. I think he'd just keep going like an enraged Rottweiler or pit bull that,
because when you think about it, it's that whole chestnut off. You can take down drug lords and the frats, but there'll always be someone pop up to take their places. So in some ways, Vic's job will never be complete, because there's always the next drug lord, there's always the next frat. You take one down, someone else is going to take their place, fill the void. Vic is never going to quit.
Well, let's talk drug lords. David Acevedo is blackmailed by Cruz Pezuela, a crooked Mexican real estate developer and diplomat. Pezuela has his hands on a blackmail box, which he uses to reignite rivalries between Vic and Acevedo. Instead, they join forces, and Vic fakes Pezuela's death so he can go undercover as an enforcer for Pezuela's cartel connection, Guillermo Beltran.
I'm working undercover for ICE. The box is back in play. We need Olivia's file in order to sell it to Pezuela.
When the hell did this happen?
You said something this morning about wanting to see justice done?
Time to jump on board the karma train.
I have to handle Pezuela very carefully. He can hurt me. And you say you want to bring him down? You were just working for the man.
She had no choice.
Look, I'm sorry, but Vic doesn't make a very compelling character witness. Holding onto your file gives me a card to play in case you're ever tempted to switch sides again.
Here's what happens if you don't give up the file. Pezuela doesn't take the bait. ICE doesn't understand why, so they put his balls through the ringer just on general principle, and he gives up Olivia anyway.
Then I roll on you for blackmailing me.
And I back her story.
This is Vic's arc in trying to make his way into ICE, and Acevedo, the ambitious, morally flexible slickster. It's clear that the aftermath of the rape took him to a dark side that he never really looked back from. There's maybe been an opportunity for redemption in his alliance with Kavanagh, I think, but he failed with that. He screwed that up. He contributed to Lem's death by putting out this fake information. I mean, we can't burden Acevedo with that, but contributing factors and all that. And now the blackmail box is in play. At one point, he's threatening to pull out of this investigation because he could get tarred by this.
He could.
So he's kind of playing a game at the ice table with Vic, to who can hang about in this contrived story as an undercover. Acevedo pulls out, he gets mud all over him, but if he hangs in, he has great political clout, and he threatens the investigation to make his run to be mayor reality.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, has Vic made a deal with ICE yet?
It's very much in the talk stage. As we go on, Vic and Ronnie, although Ronnie comes into it much later, kind of insist on that's the price. They bring down Beltran and his cartel, and they get their ICE immunity and new job.
Because I think it's worth noting that obviously, because at some point doesn't Kring get arrested, so it causes Vic to make a deal with ICE, and basically Vic has to come clean about everything, but they need him to take down this one last drug lord.
Yeah, it's very much it's kind of classic Shield, I think, for the first half of season 7. It's the blackmail box is an entertaining MacGuffin. Vic is spinning all the plates that he can.
Yeah,
he has
trying to
Beltran,
make as many deals. Yeah,
he has Beltran's ear. He's whispering. There's a really nice tense scene. Vic is setting up a buy-in for Beltran.
That's right.
And he steals 100K from one of the drug lords at the buy, like a couple of hours before the buy-in,
which will cause them to explode.
Yeah, and it's another Mackey paints himself into an impossible corner and somehow gets out of it.
He gets out of it, and the whole idea was they bring down this drug lord, but the only way to do it is if they're caught red-handed with the drugs. Olivia at this point is through with Vic. She's disgusted. She feels he hasn't delivered, but Vic is convinced he can get this guy. So he calls Acevedo to go over her head and get a sting set up. It goes down. They get the drugs. Vic's thinking, "I've done it. It's all good," and technically it is. He's held up his end of the bargain. Unfortunately, he will have a bit of a shock still to come. But we have to talk about Ronnie, because Ronnie's under the impression that this deal is for Vic and Ronnie.
Yeah, the Ronnie stuff. It really only becomes in the latter half of season 7 where Ronnie becomes involved in the job. I think it's a bit of a naivete on his part.
Absolutely. But I think, again, I was watching it and I was getting a bit confused because I think Vic the way he was talking was he told Ronnie that him and Vic are clear. You know, if they do this, they get a clean slate. The problem is to keep Corinne out of jail, I think he has to sacrifice Ronnie, if I remember rightly.
So you're jumping ahead quite a bit because you're very excited. You've just watched the last season today, haven't you?
I have, but I'm trying to figure out, you know, where does this fit in? Because obviously, when Vic makes the deal for himself, you know, when does Ronnie think he gets that deal? Quite soon after, and I can't remember how Ronnie plays into this or why he has to give up Ronnie.
We had our chance.
Hey man, it's just like any other case. Sometimes you just gotta wait until something hits.
I can't sit in the barn and wait. If someone goes down and I don't hear about it, all they gotta do is march across the bullpen and slap the cuffs on me.
And how's your running gonna make me look?
You should run too, man.
Hey, this isn't something I haven't thought of myself, okay?
Then let's go.
No, let's go. No, Shane does not get to win. He dropped the grenade that killed our team, but he doesn't get to kill your career, my life with my children. The side gig I got going with ICE, it's going really well. I'm trying to insulate us from all this shit. Set us up with jobs and Fed badges.
Why would they want to bail us out, Vic?
Me helping out Olivia? It's got her in my corner. And she's whispering in all the right ears. All I gotta do is nail this shithead Mexico.
Pizuela?
Not Pizuela. His boss. He's a cartel guy. And when that mousetrap springs, I'll tell ICE that it's time for them to cut us a deal.
And you think they'll go for that?
All I need is 2-3 more days. We keep looking for Shane, or he stays hidden that long. I turn it up a notch with Olivia, and then I toss your name in when she starts talking terms. Give me one last shot at getting us through this shit. If I fail, we'll both run.
So this is the trade-off with Corinne. He thinks Corinne is going to get arrested for this money that we were talking about that he ripped off the buy-in. Mm-hmm. This was going to Corinne to give to Mara, but dropped off by Ronnie. Then Corinne was lifted by Claudette, but obviously Corinne was working the inside level, but Vic doesn't know that. Vic thinks Corinne has been arrested. Because
he thinks he has to save her.
Yeah, he gave her that money, which is handed over initially. Yes, that's the web of it all. Let's take a Dutch angle, shall we? I know you like your Dutch angles, and you've been busting to talk about this one. Dutch focuses on Lloyd, a kid he's certain will become a serial killer. The two of them duel it out psychologically, and eventually Lloyd's mother goes missing, and the boy tries to frame Dutch for the murder. So you were thinking this could have been the Dutch goes over the line and becomes a bit of a Dexter case?
Well, in my head, I was thinking, wouldn't it be a great turn of events if Dutch turned out to be a serial killer? I didn't think it would happen, but it sort of crossed my mind when he's talking to the captain and he's saying, I didn't do this. I couldn't do this. And she's saying, I know you didn't. I know you better than you know yourself. And when she said that, I was like, I wonder, is there any chance he done this? But no, it looks like he was getting played.
Because Dutch has typically sort of seen serial killers everywhere. This is one of those sort of moments of reckoning with himself. He's got this stubbornness. He's poking his nose in with this Lloyd character.
Lloyd, how they meet Lloyd is Lloyd shoots an intruder in his house, but Dutch feels that story doesn't hold up, and that Lloyd knew that the guy was coming to the house and was waiting ready with a shotgun. And as Dutch said, he's planned the perfect murder at 16. The problem is Dutch gets too involved and goes to the mother and tries to befriend her so that he can keep an eye on that kid that he thinks is going to become a serial killer. Unfortunately, this 16-year-old kid's pretty smart and sees through what Dutch is doing, comes into the police station saying his mother is missing, and then they find out that his mother's burnt clothes are in Dutch's bin.
Do you know the name of the actor who plays Lloyd? I know he's been in...
I don't.
The mother is played by an actress named Frances Fisher, who has quite a bit of form.
She's the concerned mother, you know, she's raising him on her own. She's trying her best, but he doesn't do homework. He's basically a C-grade student who's just sort of, you know, not doing terribly, but not doing brilliantly either, and she's pretty concerned with him. So when Dutch befriends her and sort of says, look, maybe he needs a man figure in his life, Dutch, I think, is trying to sort of say to him, look, let me help you with the kid. But all along, he's doing it because he really feels that this kid's going to murder again.
Actor's name is Kyle Gallner, and he's got a wonderful sort of dead-eyed kind of stare to him in this role. He does. He's Bart Allen in Smallville.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Hassel Farrell in Outsiders, and Cassidy Beaver Casablancas in Veronica Mars.
Right, okay.
So that's where you've seen him before.
Yeah, he's been in quite a bit then. But yet, he's got this tremendous presence for such a young guy. You know, he's playing this 16-year-old. I don't know what age he really is. In the interrogation room, he's just got this look on his face that Dutch can't break. He's so calm, collected with his thoughts. Dutch suspects him, but Dutch is struggling to break him, which leads Dutch to befriend the mum and get himself in loads of trouble. And of course, who is it sees Dutch's ass? There's only one person could see him.
Yep, Claudette. And I thought that rounds their relationship as partners off quite nicely.
Short of a confession, I'm not going to make this case. And I can't sweat one out of him without alerting the mother he's a suspect. In which case, she circles the wagons around her sweet teen killing machine.
It sounds like you've done everything you can.
What if everything I've learned in my career, everything I've been through, is meant to bring me to this exact place and time? This kid, this case.
And what happened to the higher power who put you here? Why wasn't he there to stop Lloyd from pulling the trigger?
I mean, who's the better detective? Someone who arrests the bad guy after he's killed 30 people, or the one who prevents 30 murders from happening in the future?
None of us could see the future.
Give it a shove in the right direction.
I felt this storyline on paper possibly looked quite repetitive, but I think the performances really elevated.
Yeah, it felt a very, you know, it felt like another one of these cases where Dutch has met his match. He can't break the person. Yeah. It's driving him crazy. But Claudette has to take him off the case and sort of say, look, you need to protect yourself here. You're a suspect now in a murder.
Yeah. The most recent example of this is Cleavon Gardner. And this harks back to, I mean, Cleavon came down because of Claudette and what Dutch taught. So this sort of bringing down Lloyd, it's kind of, it's a nice rounding about all, you know, they've taught each other all these things in this partnership. They've always got each other's back. And this is kind of like almost a victory lap. Yeah. It's kind of interesting that it kind of ends almost at the halfway point of where a S.H.I.E.L.D. story would end. They know they've got him on something, they've rattled him, but it's left to us to imagine what comes next.
What comes next, yeah. Claudette leaves it like she goes in sort of a terror, gets him a wee bit, comes out and says he'll break. It's just a matter of time. And that's really all we get.
So let's get to the big massive double beats, because the second half of season 7 is just phenomenal. Vendrell attempts to kill Mackey, but it goes awry, making him and his family fugitives of the law. Vic and Ronnie Gardocki try to pin Shane Vendrell for the murder of Lem. With no hold over Mackey, Shane Vendrell kills himself and his family.
There was this beautiful scene, again for Mara, where she's got an arm wound, and they go back to the house, and she sits down with Shane, and she says, what's going to happen to our son? He's going to go to the foster system. What are we going to do? Shane, at this point, thinks he's still got a card to play with Vic, in that I think Shane is going to go and spill all if his family's protected. what Shane unfortunately doesn't know is Vic has already pleaded all with ICE and made a deal.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that Shane can say that Vic hasn't told ICE.
So
You know,
it all kind of comes out because there's episode 8, Parasite. Shane's hired this gangster to kill Ronnie, I think, and he, in interrogation, he has fingered Shane. And Shane really doesn't care what number he selects in the softball game this season. He's out of that building as fast as he can. I think it's interesting. Mara goes and sees Corinne. She's quite straight about what she wants Corinne to do, about what she wants Corinne to know. Mara is a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
She will, as somebody who's used to looking at scripts and selling, is kind of vital in making Corinne's world tumbles at that point.
It does. I mean, yeah.
The whole fugitive thing of it, it reminds me very much of a book that I studied at school, a novel by Bernard McLaverty. It's called Lamb. Lamb was published in 1980, and it was made into quite a good film, but with Liam Neeson and Hugh O'Connor. So basically, you have this priest, this boy's Borstal, and it's a really vicious lifestyle. And this young kid, Owen, he suffers from behavioral problems. He has severe epilepsy, and this is something that, you know, if he takes a seizure, whatever, he's punished for it, and he's constantly miserable. And the priest and the young boy, they build quite a bond of friendship between them. Neeson's priest decides he's going to take this kid on the run and give him a happier life, just to get him out of the barbarity of this Christian Brothers school.
Right.
They have a bit of money and they have some good times, but then it goes downhill. There's gambling, epilepsy gets worse, there's pot, they end up in squats, they become afraid of molestation from all these other characters, and the priest just can't look after him. And eventually, on hearing Owen is happiest in his seizure state, the priest drowns Owen amid a seizure state. They're both wearing t-shirts that they've had printed of the two of them hanging out together. The Shane arc is a real tragedy. It's a real heartbreaker. I mean, it's Shane is still Shane. He's taken too many risks. He's running around. He's just cashing dodgy checks. He's gambling. He's doing coke.
He's basically, he's not in his right mind, but he's got no other card left to play. What haunts him is what Mara said. Our son is going to grow up in the foster system with no one if we don't get out of this.
There's a whole honeymoon sort of level to their arc. I mean, there's some really beautiful scenes where Michelle Hicks is looking after the youngster. Walton Goggins is playing piano. They're making love. They're hanging out in the swimming pool. And it's this sort of insight into what they could have been had Vic
it's very,
been in their lives.
yeah. You know, it's not only if Vic hadn't been in their lives, but if Shane just didn't go down the rabbit hole that he went down, Shane could have got out.
As Shane takes more and more risks, all of this life that he has lived, now it's catching up to Mara and enveloping her as well, and it breaks her. She becomes a killer. She becomes vulnerable, damaged, and we see Mara as infant, a really weak character. You know, I mean that with the greatest respect to Michelle Hicks. There's an interesting, so you've got that interesting concept. Contrast with Mara and Shane are completely honest with one another, whereas Vic lies to Corinne.
Yeah,
constantly.
Is the one thing he's got that Shane doesn't, is his family.
You know, you always thought you were twice the family man I was, right? Your great dad, a loving, misunderstood husband, right? Your family loves you so much, Vic, why'd they turn on you, huh? Corinne's working with the cops, buddy. She answered one of our calls and handed the phone over to Claudette, who tried to get us to come in, with you as the big catch. You know that? The mother of your children has been playing you. She would rather see you go to prison than to hug one of your own kids again. Whatever happens to me and Mara, at least we'll be together for it. Who you got, Vic? Tell me who you got.
You and Queen Bitch are serving your mandatory life sentences apart. I'm gonna check in on Jackson and this other kid once a year on their birthdays. I'm gonna tell them some good old stories about Ma and Pa. Muss their hair. Take them out for an ice cream.
And you don't even get to look at my kids! Ever! You understand that?
Yeah, well, I'll send you a postcard from Space Mountain.
Vic's lost his family at this point.
Yeah.
There's probably not much turning back he can do there.
It's
Or
that
Mara,
compartmentalization again, isn't it? He doesn't acknowledge this.
he won't acknowledge it. There's
They haven't
always,
been about for a while.
he thinks he can just go and speak to them and sort it out. Whereas the tragedy is Mara stood by. You know, whatever you think of Mara, Vic always thought she was a gold digger. And so did we.
Yeah.
But she stuck by him through thick or thin. And in some ways, she probably shouldn't have. She should have took her kid and ran, but she sticks by him. So Shane could have always had that family element if he had just got out. But it's this thing where he has to prove himself against Vic time and time again. In his own head, he has to prove that he's either smarter or as smart as Vic. And in the end, whether either of them are actually that smart.
I wasn't clear initially that Shane slipped something in their drinks. I thought it was the way it was visually arranged to look like a group suicide.
Yeah.
And they drank the Kool-Aid of the cult of Shane.
Yeah, that's what I thought at first, but there is a line that Shane says, I think in a suicide note.
Suicide note, yeah.
They were happy, they were playing together. He just put something in their drink so they didn't know, they just went to sleep.
Shane has bought Jackson a little police car.
Yeah, which he
He's
holds.
holding.
Yeah. It's very sad, but I think the
Yeah.
whole staging and the way he stages them, they look at peace. They look almost happy. And that's because that's how he sees that he wants to see his family. As opposed to the way he goes out, he doesn't take a pill, you know.
Claudette and Dutch enlist Corinne to take down Vic. Mackey successfully busts the cartel for ice, but betrays Ronnie Gardocki, who is arrested for the strike team's crimes. Mackey is left to run a desk, lest he go against his terms and be arrested as well.
Yeah, basically he'll just be writing reports on patterns he sees in crime and what have you. The look on his face when he sees his desk, you know, to him that's hell.
This is maybe covering the last episode over these 2 points, and it's just scene after scene of heart-wrenching stuff. I'm thinking about Corinne in the park, waiting with that bag, panicking. There's some really nice scenes between Claudette, Dutch, and Corinne. I mean, the one that really got me, I think you as well, was the betrayal of Ronnie.
Again, Vic rationalizes it was either Ronnie or his family, and he picked his family. Yeah, I suppose, not that I feel sorry for Ronnie, because quite frankly, he went with Vic all the way, and Shane did tell him at some point when you're going to stop being his lapdog.
I mean, Claudette seems a little spiteful, but we can forgive her.
Claudette pulls Vic in, makes him sit in the criminal side of the interrogation room.
In the the reading out of Shane's suicide letter.
They were innocent, and they're in heaven now, and we'll always be a family. The guilty ones are me and Vic. Vic led, but I kept following. I don't think one's worse than the other, but we made each other into something worse than our individual selves. I wish I'd never met him. I see it all now. There's no apologies I can make, no explanations I can give. I was who I was, and I can't be that person anymore. I can't let myself. We think this is where he was when we came in, because it stops there.
Showing him the photos, timing the arrest of Ronnie so that he could see it.
Mm-hmm. And Ronnie's reaction, the betrayal, the look in his eyes.
Yeah, I think it's one of the great lines.
Ronald Everett Gardocki, you're under arrest.
For what?
The last 3 years. The Armenian money train robbery, covering up Terry Crowley's murder. Mackey gave the feds everything. Already got himself full immunity. Not you, though.
What?
You told them all of it?
Ronnie.
You made a deal for yourself and you're sending me to prison?
I'm sorry, my family. I thought Corinne...
You goddamn sorry!
Process him.
Take him in.
I didn't think I had a choice.
Oh, what about my goddamn choice, Vicky?
Okay, all right.
Where was my goddamn choice? I was going to run! We were going to run together! God damn it! What about the team? What about protecting the goddamn team?
You can go now.
It was a terrible scene, a great scene.
Yeah, his whole world is being taken away from him here. His family, his friends, the respect of his colleagues. This last season, there's been a lot of returning actors. We've had the character of the bottom bitch character, who was a friend of Vic CI. We've had Tavon has popped back to throw some guilt on Shane. I forget the character's name. He's like, I've got in my notes Vic's future ghost. So he's one of these ex-coppers who's started his own agency, but he's morally quite dubious.
Was that Carl Weathers, was it?
Might have been, yeah. Yeah, name rings a bell.
Apollo and Rocky, and yeah.
We also have Kavanagh, who pops back for a beautiful minute.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that scene, giving Corinne and Summer their new home.
Showing them what there is and what's around, and yeah, he's got the smile on his face because he knows at that moment he won. He's took Vic's family away from him, so...
The poetry of, Vic's downfall, everything really is taken away from him. We could have a reasonable bit of doubt cast in an argument about whether justice is served for Vic. It's not really, but in poetic terms...
In a way it is.
It's quite a treat.
One of the scenes I sort of like is he goes to his desk and he gets out the small pictures of his kids. Then he just sits back. The lights go off in the building. He hears sirens. He looks out the windows. He sees the cop cars racing down the street. It basically ends with him getting his gun, putting it in his back pocket, putting his jacket on, and walking out. And that's it. We don't know what happens to him, what he does after that. It would actually be a great thing to do a TV special on.
Yeah, there was actually talk of doing a sort of a Where's Vic Mackey?
Olivia says that his sentence, he has to work for them for 3 years or he goes to prison. I'm thinking he won't be able to keep his nose clean for 3 years at that desk job. He'll get into shit somehow.
Yeah, well, if we were supposed to read from him taking that gun head out in the streets to get involved with something, that's
it's not clear.
If it's that quick, he's not going to last.
They kind of leave it open to our imaginations what really happens. The ending is very subdued, very quiet. Vic just sitting back in that desk chair, looking rejected as if it's almost worse than a prison sentence.
I think I read that they got clothes that were too big for Michael Chiklis to make him look smaller.
Yeah. And they also... the suit didn't look like it fitted him, and I think that's a metaphor for he does not wear suits.
That's Agent Murray's vindictiveness.
Yeah, very much so. And she's enjoying every moment of it because she thinks he's got off way too light. And in some ways he has.
It's very clear anyway in intention that Agent Murray and her supervisor are going to make Vic pay. They're going to make sure those are 3 long years and they squeeze every last bit out of him.
So, no one really gets a happy ending in the show. Not really. You could argue Dutch is the one that comes out probably most intact because, as far as we know, Claudette is going to back him to the hilt and he's not going to go down for this murder. But unfortunately, the last scene with them, we realise there's some bad news. Claudette isn't on any new medication. Her conditioning's getting worse and she's going to die.
Yeah.
Now, it's we don't know how many years she's got or what. She just says she'll be there doing the job every day until she's not.
That's a very Claudette sort of way to go.
Take it.
A solemnity and a stoicism.
And I love she sort of comes out one last time onto the balcony looking over the farm.
Yeah, you really feel for her though when she has lost Vic dice because that's quite she sort of explodes at Dutch. She fires Dutch.
And Dutch says, "Yeah, didn't stick, you know, because she didn't really mean it. You have to remember, for her story arc, she started suspecting Vic quite early of certain things.
I don't know. I think she, well, maybe the Glenn Close era, but
well, I think in season 2, there's a couple of things happened where she started to have her doubts about him, but at that point it wasn't enough.
Oh yeah,
you know, it was just a couple of little things.
Well, it was a Julian arc really, because initially she tells Julian just to back off, and she tells Aceveda to back off. We don't go around suspecting other cops, but then Julian comes to her for a quiet word and advice, and I think that maybe cajoles her, that opens her up a little bit.
I think so, but you know, also she's a very prideful woman.
Yes,
there's nothing she could do about the deal. You know, it's not her fault, but I think in her mind, Vic got away with all this on her watch. You know, that's the sort of woman she is.
I'm on the clock, so make it quick.
We need you to put Corinne Mackey and her kids in federal witness protection.
And why would I do that?
Because she's been helping us make a case against Vic.
Then you set her up somewhere. On your nickel.
Vic's local reach is too dangerous.
And we can't control him since you've given him immunity for every depraved act he ever committed.
Exactly. So why would I do him this one last favor?
Because it's a favor for me, not him. Because Corinne and her kids need protection in case he finds out that she helped us, and he's your monster now, and you want to hurt him, and this is a way to do that.
I think we can't leave it without talking about the 42 seconds of the last 3 years. Vic's confession scene.
Yeah.
Were you impressed with that?
Yeah, I was very impressed with it. I guess I didn't see that coming, that Vic would actually make a deal and we'd see him actually confessing to all these things. You know, some things, by the way, that I had forgot he'd done. Because over the years, he's done so much. Because it's the big things you remember, like Terry, the money train. But there's been a lot of other stuff he's done. And just to hear him round this off.
Did he tell Shane that he used his dossier to help him remember a few other things?
Exactly, because it was a bit light. Again, great actor, great scene.
Yeah. I don't remember a lot entirely about that scene, but I thought the bits that I do remember were very well staged. The idea of him having this extra long time before he says anything, rather than just give us the plot lines of the last 7 seasons, you know, to make more of a show of that moment.
I read a review after I watched this, and that's the bit of the show people think, you know, he's done so much bad shit, and they make a deal to get one bad guy off the streets. The review said, was that a smart move? Is that worth it?
Beltran is, we were wanted to believe, a big cartel player. I have some issues with Beltran, with Pizuela, and a few of the other names that are thrown about in seasons 6 and 7. I mean, Beltran himself is fine. The guy playing him as a strong physical presence.
Oh, definitely.
He's threatening, but still not Antoine level.
No, he's not, and you know, he doesn't quite have that sort of scurriness to him. Anton gets under your skin more, I think. I suppose the whole thing with the story is to find a way for Vic to pay that's more pluralic than anything else, because just seeing him sitting at a desk in a suit, to me, that would be Vic Mackey's hell.
He strikes me as a guy who never really was that fond of paperwork. Yeah. You know, and he probably could have made a bit more smarter moves in season 7 had he actually bothered to read his way through the blackmail box to see exactly what.
Yeah, you know, that's it. They sort of just picked through it a wee bit and got a couple of names out of it.
He doesn't strike me as much of a reader.
No, I mean, I suppose you could say at that point he was under so much stress over those 3 years or whatever, and at that point he was starting to miss a few beats, you know, I guess. And the other thing is he didn't have access to the box the whole time. Aceveda took it because Aceveda was worried he'd use it at the wrong time or against the wrong person.
Now, Mayor Aceveda, probably?
Well, as Claudette said, he's got a very good chance. He was there when Vic busted the drug dealers, so he was there for the cameras, and of course, he put the spin on it. He was involved the whole time, working with the police. And let's not forget, one of his other rivals for mayor was shot down and killed, I believe.
Robert or Lawrence Huggins.
Yeah.
The Paradigm Party.
It's a new paradigm, people.
And this is the same actor that played the guy who ran the comic book store.
Yeah.
Shouting, "Crack, get off the block." I love that character.
Yeah.
And they're both very, I don't know if they're supposed to be the same character. They're both very similar, sort of reactionary, sort of challenge and change. And,
very theatrical with the way they talk.
I mean, Acevedo, for all his whiz, is very much an old school traditional politician. That's his way. That's the sort of circuit that he moves in. Not like Carcetti, it's the politics game has certain rules to it.
He knows the system, certainly.
And when someone like Huggins comes along and says, "Well, no, that's all BS," that you don't have to look at these two choices. You can look at other choices.
Acevedo's policy to help the streets is to put more cops on the streets. And this guy's saying, actually, that's going to cause a bigger problem. And you get the feeling he was getting the support of certainly that group of people that Acevedo was talking to. But then he gets shot. It's strange because his last words were to Tina in the ambulance saying, "Have I got your vote?" And Tina shows him the badge saying, "Yeah, you've got my vote."
Yeah.
And then he just dies.
Little scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was nice to have a story for Tina there.
They let everyone sort of have their closing moments,
I think that about wraps us up.
Wow.
I'm putting down my my badge and my gun and wrapping it up here.
Yeah, absolutely. You could talk.
We could go on.
I sort of apologize a wee bit because season 6 and 7 are quite complicated in story threads.
Yeah.
That I kind of felt I was all over the place there a wee bit, but it's been a hell of a journey.
Yeah, and you know what? It really does stand up to rewatching. If you've been excited listening to us talking about it and thinking, "I must go back and watch those," absolutely do.
Yeah, just say at the minute it is on Prime, the whole series. I don't know how long for, and then again the DVDs aren't exactly that dear, so I would recommend people check it out. It's one of the best pieces of television I've probably ever seen.
Yeah,
and I'm a big television buff, so.
Yeah, it's certainly massively underrated, massively. And I mean, this came out in the era of, this came out right after The Sopranos. It ran concurrently with The Wire, but because, a few years later we got Breaking Bad and a lot of other prime time television that was like of serious big balls, I think The Shield has been buried to some degree. It's certainly not as good as The Wire, but it's not trying to do The Wire.
No, it's very much its own thing. Obviously, things like Breaking Bad were on bigger stations, weren't they? I mean,
yeah,
The Shield was FX, and maybe that.
And it was FX's first drama, really. I mean, at that point, they didn't even have Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is the best show on television. But that's beside the point. Actually, if you would like to see some more Shield, go to YouTube and check out Skip Intro Propaganda. He has a 2-part documentary on the Shield, which has an awful lot of book smarts to it. Some really critical thinking I really enjoyed reading that. And Skip Intro's on Patreon as well, and he's doing some good stuff on there.
I'll have to check that out because there isn't too much about the Shield on there.
There's not. There's a few clips. I noticed the DVD features have been popping up there a lot more recently.
Right.
And actually, the DVD, if you can get it on DVD, the commentaries are a master class.
Who does the commentaries?
Well, I think it's Sean Ryan and Michael Chiklis pop up regularly. It's mostly the actors and the writers and producers.
Right.
I know Lem has done a few, and Walton Goggins and CCH Pounder. I think the whole cast. I learned a lot about writing as part of a group from those commentaries. You listen to so many commentaries, and it's just like a bunch of frat school kids sharing in jokes. But in the Shield, the camaraderie of the actors and production staff comes over, but they're really talking a lot about how things were made and answering a lot of questions that are on the tip of your tongue. I really recommend those, and there's other extra features and deleted scenes.
Excellent. I'll have to check it out because I've never seen the special features of the Shield. I've watched most of it on Prime, so But excellent.
Yep.
It's been a lot of fun talking about Shield, because I honestly don't know too many people that have watched it. When you started talking about it, I got excited because I thought, wait, so there's someone else other than me's watched this show? Because obviously I got told about it by a friend in work, but no one else had heard of it. I mean, I was telling our friends when we done part 1, we were doing the Shield, and they said, I love Agents of Shield. And I was like, no, not that Shield. Not that Shield.
Go and sit in the corner. Go and sit in the corner.
Go sit in the corner.
Anything you'd like to plug before we go?
Yeah, I'd love to plug the USS Caroline Facebook page. We're a Star Trek fan community in Northern Ireland, Belfast, who just get together on Facebook and Zoom, watch parties and just chat. It'd be great if you could check us out, join our page, and we'll have a bit of crack with us. That'd be amazing.
And that's open to anybody, really, isn't it?
That's open to anybody.
They can join up as members.
We even let Andy join. So anybody.
USS Caroline on Facebook. Reach out to me or Ian if you get lost. We're both on there. So as always, I do this as a gateway drug for my Patreon. Thanks to Ian and many like him who are patrons. That's at patreon.com/Andy Luke, and there's subscriber poems, comics, this podcast and stuff. And you can find me on Twitter at Andrew Luke. Next month, we're going to be exploring Marvel Comics' 25th anniversary line of titles, the New Universe series.
Ooh.
By Jim Shooter, Archie Goodwin, and a lot more talent than is often associated with this rebuked and disposable work. And we've got some contributions by fans and those who were involved in the creative process at the time. So look out for that, and I'll see you next month. Thank you from the Drew and Luke podcast. Goodbye, Ian.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Andy. The Drew and Luke podcast sponsored by Red Bull.